you've done everything right. The promotions came, the salary increased, your LinkedIn profile gleams. Your parents are proud, your friends think you've made it. And yet, there's this feeling, this hollow feeling. Like you're watching your own life from behind glass. Like success is something that happened to you, not something you actually feel. You wake up at 6 a.m. You optimize your morning routine. Meditation app? Check. Green smoothie? Check. Inbox 0 by 9. You're crushing it. The metrics say so, the performance reviews say so, the quarterly bonuses say so. But here's what they don't measure. The quiet panic that sets in around 3 p.m. when you realize you've been going through the motions for how long now? Months? Years? The creeping suspicion that you've climbed a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Or worse, that there is no right wall. You try to talk about it, and people look at you like you're insane. What do you have to complain about, they ask. Do you know how many people would kill for your job? And they're right. You know they're right. Which makes it so much worse. Because now you can't even trust your own unhappiness. So you optimize harder. New productivity system, new goal framework, OKRs, KPIs, SMART goals. You tell yourself, maybe I just need the next thing, the next promotion, the next city, the next relationship, the next level. But what if the problem isn't that you haven't achieved enough? What if the problem is achievement itself? What if high functioning isn't functioning at all? This feeling has a name, or rather, it has many names, scattered across philosophy, psychology, and sociology. But we're going to call it what it is: the existential crisis of the high-functioning person. And it's not new. In fact, it's ancient, but it has never been more widespread, more normalized, more marketed to us than it is right now. Let's start with the mechanism. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre had a concept he called bad faith, mauvaise foi. It refers to a form of self-deception where we deny our own freedom by pretending we have no choice. We tell ourselves, this is just how things are. This is what adults do. This is what success looks like. We become what Sartre would call a waiter who is playing at being a waiter. Going through the choreography of our roles so perfectly, so automatically, that we forget there was ever a choice involved. We perform competence. We perform ambition. We perform fulfillment. And after a while, we can't tell the difference between the performance and the person anymore. But Sartre isn't the only one who saw this coming. Let's jump forward 50 years. The sociologist Byung-Chul Han wrote about what he calls the achievement society. Han argues that we no longer live in a disciplinary society where power controls us through prohibition. You must not do this. No, that's too obvious, too clumsy. Instead, we live in a society that controls us through optimization. You can be better. You can be more productive, more efficient, more mindful, more authentic. The modern subject isn't oppressed. They're depressed. Because the mandate is no longer obedience. It's self-exploitation. You are both the master and the slave. The one cracking the whip and the one bleeding under it. And you can't even quit because quitting would be a failure of optimization. Han calls this the violence of positivity. Yes, you can. Sounds like encouragement. But it's actually a command. An infinite command. Because there's no finish line in the achievement society. No moment where you're allowed to say, enough. I've done enough. So you keep going. You keep achieving. Because stopping would mean confronting the question you've been running from. what was it all for? And here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just about external systems, capitalism, meritocracy, hustle culture. It's also about something deeper, something internal. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, argued that human beings can endure almost any suffering as long as they believe it means something. But when suffering feels arbitrary, when the pain has no purpose, when the exhaustion leads to nothing but more exhaustion, that's when we break. And the high-functioning person? They're trapped in a very specific kind of meaninglessness. Because their suffering isn't dramatic. It's not poverty or persecution or war. It's the quiet erosion of the self in exchange for accomplishments that don't actually matter to them. It's the realization that they've been completing someone else's quest log.
And the worst part? They're good at it. They're so good at it that everyone thinks they're fine. Thriving, even. But inside they're screaming.
So, we've diagnosed the condition. We've traced its roots. Now comes the hard part. What do we do about it? And here's where most self-help content fails you. Because the typical answer is, just find your passion. Just be authentic. Just quit your job and follow your dreams.
As if it were that simple. As if you haven't tried. As if the problem is just a lack of courage rather than a fundamental confusion about what it even means to live well. This is where philosophy becomes necessary, not as decoration, not as intellectual flex, but as a diagnostic tool, a way of seeing the problem clearly so we can actually address it. Let's turn to Albert Camus, the absurdist. The guy who said the only serious philosophical question is whether or not to kill yourself, which is not what we're advocating here, obviously. But Camus was onto something. Camus believed that human beings are caught in a fundamental contradiction. We crave meaning. We demand meaning. We need our lives to matter. But the universe? The universe is indifferent, silent. It doesn't care about your quarterly earnings or your 5-year plan or your personal brand. This collision between our need for meaning and the universe's refusal to provide it is what Camus called the absurd. Now, most people, when they encounter the absurd, do one of two things. 1. They commit philosophical suicide. They invent meaning. Religion, ideology, astrology, hustle culture, stoicism, Twitter threads. They construct a system that tells them what to do, what to value, what to pursue, so they don't have to face the absurd directly. Or 2, they commit actual suicide. They give up. They decide that if life is meaningless, why bother? And look, this is not a judgment. Despair is real. Depression is real. But Camus rejected this option too. Because Camus proposed a third way. A way that doesn't deny the absurd and doesn't surrender to it. He called it revolt. Revolt means, yes, the universe is meaningless. Yes, your achievements will be forgotten. Yes, we're all going to die and none of this objectively matters. And I'm going to live anyway. Not because life has inherent meaning, but because I create meaning through the act of living, through choosing, through saying this is what I care about. Not because I'm supposed to, not because it will be rewarded, but because it's mine. Camus gives us the myth of Sisyphus, the guy condemned to roll a boulder up a hill forever, only to watch it roll back down forever. And Camus says, we must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because the task is meaningful, but because Sisyphus owns it. He's not waiting for salvation. He's not optimizing the boulder. He's just there, present, alive, free. But here's the thing. Camus wrote this in 1942, before productivity culture, before LinkedIn, before you could gamify your entire existence and call it personal growth. So let's bring this into the present. Let's talk about what revolt actually looks like for the high-functioning person trapped in the achievement society. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han, remember him, argues that the antidote to achievement burnout is not more achievement. It's not find your passion. It's not optimize better. It's subtraction. It's refusal. It's the deliberate practice of not performing. Han talks about the importance of what he calls deep boredom. Not the anxious boredom of scrolling your phone, but the profound boredom of doing nothing, of letting your mind wander, of not being useful, not being productive, not being on. Because in those moments, that's when you remember who you are outside of your achievements, outside of your role, outside of the performance. That's where the self lives, in the gaps, in the pauses, in the moments when you're not trying. But there's a problem, and we have to name it. You can't just opt out. You can't just quit your job and move to a cabin in the woods. I mean, you can, but most of you won't. You have rent. You have student loans. You have people depending on you. So the question becomes, how do you practice revolt within the system? How do you reclaim your interiority while still functioning? This is the real work. And it's not dramatic. It's not Instagram-worthy. It's quiet. It's subtle. It's boring, even. It's saying no to meetings that don't matter. It's letting emails sit unanswered. It's choosing the project that interests you over the one that will look good. It's defending your weekends, your evenings, your attention. It's the radical act of believing that your inner life is more important than your output. And that's terrifying. Because you've been taught your whole life that your value is measured, that you are what you produce. But you're not. You're not. So, let's get practical, because philosophy without application is just trivia. If you're experiencing the existential crisis of the high-functioning person, if you've looked at your life and felt that nauseating disconnect between success and meaning, here's what you need to understand. You cannot think your way out of this. I know. This is a philosophy video. But existentialism isn't about thinking. It's about being. It's about action, choice, commitment. Sartre said existence precedes essence, which means you don't discover who you are. You create who you are through the choices you make, through the things you do when no one's watching, through the projects you commit to not because they're good career moves, but because they're yours. So the first step is this. Stop waiting for clarity. You will never have perfect information. You will never feel ready. You will never find the one true path that makes everything make sense. And that's okay. Because the point isn't to find the right answer. The point is to choose, to act, to say, I don't know if this is the right thing, but it's my thing. And that's enough. Second, reclaim your attention. Your attention is not a resource to be optimized. It's not a commodity to be monetized. It's you. It's your consciousness, your life. And every minute you spend optimizing someone else's KPIs is a minute you're not spending on whatever it is that actually lights you up. So, delete the productivity apps. Stop tracking everything. Stop trying to maximize your mornings. Just live. Messily. Imperfectly. Humanly. And yes, you'll be less efficient. You'll produce less. You'll achieve less. Good. Because the goal isn't output. The goal is aliveness. The goal is to feel like you're inhabiting your life instead of just managing it. Third, grieve the person you thought you'd be. This is the part no one talks about. The high-functioning person is usually carrying around a ghost, a vision of who they were supposed to become. The prestigious job, the impressive title, the life that would finally make them feel like they'd made it. And maybe you got that life. Maybe you're living it right now. And it's not enough. Or maybe you didn't get it. Maybe you failed. Maybe you're stuck in a job you hate, or a city you never wanted to live in, or a version of yourself you don't recognize. Either way, you have to let go of the person you thought you'd be. Because that person is killing you. That person is keeping you trapped in bad faith, in achievement addiction, in the endless game of not yet. You have to grieve them, mourn them, and then let them go. And finally, build something that doesn't scale. In a world obsessed with growth, leverage, and impact, the most radical thing you can do is care about something small, something private, something that will never make you money or followers or status. A garden, a poem, a friendship, a daily walk, a weird hobby that serves no purpose except that it makes you feel alive. These are the things that remind you that you exist outside the system, that your value isn't determined by the market, that you are not a productivity machine or a human capital unit or a thought leader. You're a person. A weird, messy, contradictory, finite person. And that's enough. Camus ends The Myth of Sisyphus with a line that's always stayed with me. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because he's achieved anything, not because he's won, but because he's there, fully present, fully alive, fully his. The existential crisis of the high-functioning person isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's your psyche screaming at you, this isn't it. This isn't what we're here for. And it's right. You are not here to be impressive. You're not here to maximize your potential or crush your goals or become the best version of yourself. You're here to be, to choose, to care, to suffer and love and fail and try again. To roll your boulder up the hill, not because it means something, but because you do. One must imagine you happy.